Part of learning how to support your teen without getting pulled under is understanding that emotions themselves aren't the problem. Hard emotions don't need to be rushed. They don't need to be solved, and they don't need to be avoided. They just need to be allowed. And so instead of, don't worry, it'll be fine, or it's not that big of a deal, we can try something like, yeah, that really hurts. Gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm right here with you. Welcome to Parents and Teens Rising, the podcast that bridges the gap between parents and teens and helps families thrive. I'm Jasmine Chandler, teen and parent coach, wilderness rites of passage guide, and founder of Guided Passages. After over 16 years of working with young people, I know how challenging and rewarding these years can be. Each week, we'll explore real conversations, practical tools, and fresh perspectives to help you connect with your teen, support their confidence, and navigate the ups and downs. Let's rise together. Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. I'm so happy you're here. I know for so many of us, parenting teens can feel like such an emotional experience. So when they're up, we're up. And when they're anxious or overwhelmed or hurting, it's like our heart is right there in it with them. And it makes so much sense because we care so deeply. We're so connected to our kids. They're our babies, but sometimes that connection can pull us under. And suddenly we're not just supporting them, we're feeling everything that they're feeling. We're carrying it in our chest, in our mind, in our nervous system. So today, I want to talk about how to stay close and supportive without losing ourselves in the process. How we can be loving and present without getting swept into the emotional storm of our teenagers. We're going to walk through some things that have helped me and that I hope will help you too. So for me, there have been so many moments in my parenting journey where one of my kids, who are now teenagers, were going through something really hard. And it honestly felt like I was going through it right alongside them. I'll hear about something that happened, or I'll watch a situation unfold in real time, and I can literally feel in my body how deeply it's impacting them. And every instinct inside of me kicks in. The mama bear in me rises. I want to fix it. I want to protect them. I want to make it all go away. And not just the situation, but the pain that they're feeling inside of it. Watching our kids go through hard moments is one of the most heart-wrenching parts of being a parent. It was like this when they were little, when someone said something unkind on the playground, or when they came home with tears because their friends were excluding them, or when they fell and scraped their knees, right? Just every little thing. And it's still like that now, only the stakes feel so much bigger. So maybe it's a coach that's hard on them, or a teacher who doesn't see them, or a game they worked so hard for but didn't win. It could be like a group text they're left out of, or an opportunity they thought they were going to get, but it didn't pan out. And even just talking about these moments, oh my gosh, it's like there's a part of me that just wants to curl up into a ball and cry on their behalf because I love them so much, and it's so hard to watch them be in pain. And I know I'm not alone in this. The second our children are even a thought in our minds, before they're even born, our hearts expand so much to make room for them. And once we hold them in our arms, that's it, right? Our life is no longer just ours anymore. They take up space inside of us in the most profound and permanent ways. And we want the best for them. We want them to feel safe. We want them to feel confident, to feel loved, to not have to experience pain. And because of that love, because of how deeply we care, it can be so easy to lose ourselves in their struggles, to get swept under every time they're hurting. And so that's really what we're talking about today, how we can support our teenagers without getting pulled under, how to stay connected and compassionate without absorbing everything they're feeling or carrying their emotional world as our own. All right, so I want to give you some tools today for how we can do that. All right, so one of the most helpful metaphors I've heard about supporting our kids through hard emotions is the idea of not jumping into the pool with them. So when our teen is overwhelmed or hurting, it's like they're floundering in deep water. So we can kind of just imagine them in the deep end of a pool, right? Their emotions feel really big, they feel really heavy, and they're really consuming. And they're struggling just to keep themselves afloat. And our instinct in those moments, because we love them so deeply, is to jump in right after them. We want to swim them to safety. We want to rescue them and carry them and even feel it for them so that they don't have to feel it. But when we jump into the emotional pool with them, something important happens. And I think we all know what it is, right? We both start drowning. And if I meet my teen's anxiety with my own anxiety, there's no anchor to hold them steady. And if I meet their overwhelm with my own overwhelm, there's no ground for us to stand on. And if I meet their pain by absorbing it into my own body, there's no one there to hold space for both of us. And then we're both sinking. So instead, my job is to stay at the edge of the pool, not far away, not checked out, not detached, but close enough that they know I'm right there with them, fully present, fully available, just not drowning alongside them. This is one of the core pieces of how to support your teen without getting pulled under. It requires us to practice holding our own emotional center while being in the presence of their emotions. This might look like noticing your breath before you respond, or intentionally speaking more slowly, or maybe even placing your hand on your heart or your belly just to remind your nervous system, I'm safe, I'm okay, right? They are having an experience that's separate from me. It means just softening your face and relaxing your shoulders and not taking on a defensive or urgent tone. Because your energy, the way your body communicates safety, that matters so much more in those moments than your words, right? So when your teen is struggling, they're not actually listening for solutions or advice first. They're watching how you're responding, what your facial expressions are, what the volume of your voice is, what your tone is, right? Your energy in that moment. They're looking to see if you can stay steady with them. It's almost like they're asking without saying it out loud, are you here with me? Am I safe and okay to bring this to you? And if your response is frantic and intense or flooded, their body receives the message that this is too big. I can't handle it. I'm alone with this. But if your response is grounded, not perfect, not emotionless, just grounded, their body receives a really different message. And it's that I'm not alone, emotion's not the enemy, and I can move through this, right? And you don't need to have the right words to say, and you don't need to have a solution yet. You just need to stay on solid ground. And so this is really a practice. It's a moment to moment choice to stay with your teen without getting lost in the experience. It looks like staying close enough to be present and supportive while also staying steady enough to remain on solid ground yourself. It's being available and being attuned and compassionate without jumping into the emotional pool alongside them. So your presence, your grounded, calm, steady presence is what allows your teen to feel safe enough to navigate their big emotions. And it's not because you're fixing it for them, but because you're showing them that they're not alone and that the moment is something they can move through. And remember, you don't have to do this perfectly, right? This isn't about nailing it every time. So even a small shift, one extra breath, a softer tone, a brief pause before responding can make such a big difference. And it's actually just so timely that this is the topic that I came up with for this week's podcast. I've been, working it out and writing my thoughts about this idea so that I could share it with you all. And of course, my daughter was going through some big emotions this week, like really big, overwhelming things for her. And, I can almost see myself in past versions on my parenting journey where I would just get so swept under with everything that was going on for her because, gosh, it's just so hard to watch her struggle. It's so hard to watch either of my kids go through it. And I used to always jump in the pool. Like, oh my God, like what's happening? And then I would just get emotional and I would feel overwhelmed and I would be up at night worrying because I would really make their experience my experience. I would be so enmeshed, so floundering in the deep water with them instead of, sitting on the edge. And so this was such a practice for me this week to be thinking about sharing this with all of you and then get to just really apply it to the next layer with my own daughter. And yeah, it's really powerful because what I noticed for myself is that A, I was able to hold a lot better space for her. And B, I was able to feel okay inside, right? Because I wasn't taking it on. It's not mine to carry. It's not mine to hold. It's mine to hold space for. It's mine to give support with, but it's not mine to hold. And I can show up in such a better way for her and so much less reactive too, because, when our teenagers have these huge emotions, they're often, taking it out on us. They're often saying things in really kind of harsh ways. They're not softening things for us. They're being their most raw, vulnerable, unfiltered selves. They're not trying to put on a show for anyone. And what that often comes off like is kind of harsh, right? On her way out of the car this morning, I'm like, okay, love you, baby. Hope you have a good day. And it was just like a grunt and a literal slamming of the car door as she left. Ouch, it didn't feel good. And I can recognize it has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with me. It's what she is going through inside. And she has to be able to go through that process. She has to be able to feel those feelings and let them out somewhere. And sometimes we are that place where they let them out. And I'm not going to take it personally. I'm not going to take it on, right? I'm going to allow her to have her moment. And, there may be sometimes when our teenagers cross the line where, they are taking it out to the point where it's disrespectful or it's really hurtful. And those are times that we can go in with some guidance later, right? When everyone's calmed down, like, hey, just so you know, when you are experiencing these big emotions, and you take it out on me or you say things in such a harsh tone, it really hurts my feelings, right? So I can bring that to her later. So it's not that I'm just allowing all of these things, especially if they do feel hurtful, but it's that understanding that she's going through something and it's not mine to hold and it's not a personal attack on me. It's just that this is how it's coming out in this moment, right? And the truth is that our teenagers, our young people, they need to be able to feel those big feelings, right? And have those big emotions and have those big outbursts and have a safe place to do that. If we are trying to tamp that down all the time, like, tone it down, like be more respectful. You can't talk to me like that. Like, how dare you? Or, like trying to fix it, trying to fix whatever they're going through. We're not allowing them to really process all the things that are happening inside. And so just giving them that space to, experience those emotions and to feel the pain that they're feeling without needing to jump in and fix it and trying to make it better and trying to deflect or trying to tell them to do it differently and let them know that the way that they're expressing it isn't okay. Like all of that is just, it's putting unnecessary pressure and expectation on just a big, raw, vulnerable, hard moment. So just how we can show up in those moments and just the reminder that, yeah, they're going to have the roller coaster a lot more than we are. And we're here to be the steady ones, right? We are the solid ground as they go up and they go down. And we don't go up and we don't go down with them. We just stay steady. And then they can do all of that and have a safe place to land whenever they need to vent or they need to cry or they need to express how hard it is. So that is the first point, is just not jumping in the pool, right? Not taking on all of their stuff for our own, because it's too much. It's too much to hold. It's the same, if we look out with all the problems in the world and all the people that are suffering, I can't take it all on. I can't carry all of that, right? It's not mine. I can go assist, I can go support, I can go take action, I can do all types of things, but I can't take it on myself. So there's a difference between having empathy and compassion for what someone's going through and taking it on ourselves as if it were our own, right? That's where we want to really draw that line within ourselves of, I can hold space for you, but I'm not going to take this. It's not mine. It's not mine to hold. You actually have to go through this. This is yours to process through and move through. And I'll be right here beside you the whole time. All right, so this next part is really important, but I want to talk about it in a way that feels honest and human, not like some self-care lecture, because none of us really need one more thing to feel guilty about not doing, right? So here's the deal. It is really, really hard to support our teenagers when we're already running on empty. So when I haven't slept enough, or when I've been rushing from one task to another task, or when I haven't had even 5 minutes to myself to take a breath, and then one of my kids comes to me in a heavy emotional place, I can feel it. My patience is shorter, my chest really tightens a lot faster, I'm way more likely to react instead of respond. And it's not because I don't love them, it's because I literally don't have the capacity in that moment. And I think that's something that we don't talk about enough, that our capacity as parents matters. Not in the dramatic, go take a spa day kind of way, although that's awesome if you can do it, but in a real life, like, did I drink water today? Have I breathed in the last 3 hours? Or did I eat something besides the crust from my kid's sandwich kind of way? And listen, I'm not here pretending I have some perfect morning routine or that I'm always regulated and calm. I am definitely not. I am definitely not perfect. And I'm certainly still learning. And there are so many days I handle things really beautifully, and so many days where I'm like, yep, that was not my finest moment. And what I'm really starting to notice though is that when I take even the smallest steps to take care of myself, like literally just pausing to breathe before I respond, I show up in a completely different way. So when I give myself a moment, I'm much more able to stay steady for my teenager instead of getting swept up in whatever they're feeling. And I don't mean big fancy rituals. I mean things like taking 30 seconds to breathe before walking inside the house, or stepping outside for some fresh air before I respond and I felt like I got triggered. Or it could be actually eating a real meal instead of just surviving on caffeine. All right, well, this one I definitely don't have down, but it seems like a good idea, right? So just letting yourself take a break before diving into the next conversation. Just really simple things, having some moments for self-care inserted into your day. So stretching or a short meditation or 15 minutes of reading or doing your favorite hobby. Or even just today, I scheduled myself 30 minutes for a walk. So these tiny things just make a big difference and they add up. Because if I'm already stretched thin, if my stress level is already up to here, then the second my teen comes in with big emotions, I have nowhere to go. I'm just flooded right along with them. But if I have even a sliver more capacity, I'm so much more likely to stay anchored instead of getting pulled under. And this is where that question comes in, the one so many of us think but don't say out loud, which is, how do I support my teen without losing myself in the process? And I think the answer really is that we have to include ourselves in the conversation. It's not because we're trying to be perfect, and it's certainly not because we're trying to get it right, but it's because we are humans and humans have limits. So supporting our teenagers doesn't mean that we have to absorb everything they're feeling. It means we stay steady enough to be present with them. Steadiness comes from small, doable moments of caring for ourselves in all those tiny little cracks throughout the day. It could be in the car, in the bathroom, at the kitchen counter, just as we're driving down the road and we're just noticing something beautiful. So we can insert little moments of self-care, little moments of resets throughout our day just by noticing the thoughts that we're thinking, looking around for something beautiful or something that we're grateful for, right? Just finding little ways throughout the day to give ourselves a little bit of care. The more care that we can give ourselves, the more we can fill our own bucket. Obviously, the more we're going to have to give to our kids, the more we're going to be able to stay grounded in those moments, right? And that's what we're going for. All right. This next piece is one that almost every parent I talk to struggles with. And honestly, I still have to remind myself about it regularly. So when our teen comes to us upset, our instinct is to fix it, right? We want to solve the problem. We want to give advice. We want to make it better. We want to rescue them. And that instinct is so deeply wired inside of us. But here's what I've noticed, and maybe you've noticed this too. When we jump into fixing mode too fast, our teen often shuts down or gets annoyed or just pulls away or says something like, "You don't understand," or "just forget it," or "I wasn't even asking you to fix it." And in those moments, it can feel really confusing because our advice is good. We do see what would help. And if they would just listen for like, I don't know, 30 seconds, we could wrap this whole thing up, right? We have the solution right here for you. I'm laying it out for you. It's so easy. But the thing is that when our teenager is in the middle of an emotional experience, they're not actually looking for solutions. They're looking for someone to sit with them in it, right? They don't need the fire put out. They need someone to sit by the fire with them. So holding space instead of fixing sounds like, "Gosh, that sounds really hard." Or, "I'm so glad you told me that." Or, "I can see why that would feel so upsetting. Are you wanting to just vent right now, or would you like some advice?" So it's not about having the perfect words. It's really about helping them feel seen instead of helped or redirected or managed. When we jump in with solutions too quickly, even with the best intentions, it can accidentally send the message that your feelings are too much, or we need to get rid of this, or even you shouldn't be feeling what you're feeling. But when we just hold the space for them, when we listen first and breathe first, and we reflect back what we're hearing, we send a whole different message, which says something to them like, you make sense, or your feelings are allowed, or I trust you to work through this. And it doesn't mean that, we're never guiding them. It doesn't mean that we never offer advice. And it doesn't mean that we just nod and smile every time things fall apart. Guidance absolutely has a place, and support has a place. Coaching has a place. All of it does, right? But advice lands so much better when their nervous system is calm and in a space where they can actually receive it. So what we really want to do is have a sequence that sounds like connect with them first, help them to regulate, and then if needed, maybe down the line a little bit, we explore some solutions. And what you'll probably find is that when we do steps 1 and 2, which is just to connect and regulate with them, our teenagers find their own solutions most often. They figure it out. They start to access their own inner wisdom. And that's really how their confidence grows, not because we gave them the right solution, but because we gave space for them just to discover their own capacity and to just be able to process through their emotions. And so this is one of the core ways we really support our teens without getting pulled under. We stay with them emotionally without rushing the moment or absorbing the feelings ourselves. We just listen and we validate and we breathe and we stay. And from that place, the real connection happens, and they will start to come to us even more when they have these big moments. And ultimately, they may even come to us for some advice. They may even ask us for what we think about something or ask us to help them find a solution. But we want to really provide the space for them to find their own solutions, for them to just process through these emotions. And a lot of times that's all it really is. Once they've processed through things, once they've cried, once they've taken their space, they have more clarity, right? They can access their own inner voice and they can figure out what they want to do next and what they think is the next best step, right? Their next best step might look a lot different than what we think their next step should be or what we would do in that same situation. And so we want to give them that space to access their own curiosity, their own creativity, their own solutions without always having to jump in. And it's actually so powerful. I've been doing this myself for years with my teenagers. And what I found is that they come to me so much more with all the things because I just hold space. They can vent, they can say the things that they want to say. I don't, try to dissect it. I don't try to pull apart the problem and ask them tons and tons of questions. That's going to keep them spinning in the problem. But I do allow them the space to process through whatever they're going through. And then afterwards, if they're looking for advice, or I feel like a little reframe or a little bit of a mindset shift could potentially help, I might go in with a little subtle tool or a little subtle tip. But I have to be very careful and conserve those for very rare and infrequent moments, because if I'm always hopping in and coaching and giving them advice and giving them tools, they are going to stop coming to me with all of those things. And then who are they going to go to? I don't know. I don't know if they'll share those things with their friend. I don't know if they have, a teacher that they're comfortable sharing these things with. I want to make sure that I am that space that they're going to come to. And part of me being that space is making sure that I'm not just jumping in and giving them advice and helping them fix things. It's me just holding the space for them to process. All right, and this brings us into our next point, which is something that sounds simple in theory, but can feel really hard in real life. And that's being okay with our teens having hard emotions. And I say this with so much compassion because I think one of the hardest things about parenting is watching our kids hurt and not being able to take the pain away. We are wired to protect them, like I've already said. We're wired to want to make things better for them. We're wired to feel what they feel. And sometimes even before they feel it, we feel it. So when they're going through disappointment or rejection or stress or loneliness or whatever it is, every instinct in us wants to go in and soothe and reassure, right? And sometimes we do that so quickly that we skip the part where we simply sit with them in the feeling. But part of learning how to support your teen without getting pulled under is understanding that emotions themselves aren't the problem. Hard emotions don't need to be rushed. They don't need to be solved, and they don't need to be avoided. They just need to be allowed. And so instead of, don't worry, it'll be fine, or it's not that big of a deal, we can try something like, yeah, that really hurts. Gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm right here with you. And it's not to amplify the emotion, but to really just make space for it, because our teens don't learn emotional resilience by avoiding discomfort. They learn it by moving through discomfort with someone really steady beside them. And so our role isn't to erase the feeling. Our role is just to stay with them while they feel it. All right. And the next thing I want to share with you really builds on this. And it's all about the difference between being with your teen and their emotions and taking those emotions on as your own. This is something I've had to learn over and over, because when one of my kids is hurting, I don't just understand it, I feel it. I am an empath. I feel it so fully in my body, in my chest, in my mind. Sometimes I'm still thinking about it hours later, or maybe I'm even up with insomnia in the middle of the night, just like spinning in it, even after they've already moved on. And that's where we can really start to lose ourselves inside their emotional world. So validation is saying, I see you and what you're feeling makes sense. But absorbing it is like, I feel it exactly how you feel it, and now I'm carrying it too. And the really tricky thing is that absorption feels like caring, it feels like love, but what our kids actually need is our steadiness, not our emotional merging. So you can really care deeply without internalizing what they're feeling. We can say things like, I get why that would feel so overwhelming, without letting our own nervous system go into overwhelm. Or just like, I'm here with you, without drowning with them. And this is where just that reminder to ourselves that this is something that they are feeling and I don't need to take it on. It's not distance and it's not detaching myself from them, but it's keeping my feet on the ground so the moment doesn't swallow me whole. It's not identifying with their emotional experience, right? I am separate from them. I am separate from my kids. I am my own person with my own emotions and my own feelings, and I have my own challenges and my own things that I'm going through. I can feel for my kids, but I don't want to take it on for them. All right, and that brings us to my final point. And this is where we bring everything together, because so much of how our teens learn to move through their emotions comes from watching how we move through our emotions, not from what we lecture them about, not from what we say they should do, but from what they actually see us doing ourselves. And this is where things really shift from when they were little. When they were young, they really did need us to filter and shield a lot, because they didn't have the capacity to understand the full range of our emotional world yet. So seeing a parent cry or feel overwhelmed could really feel scary or confusing for a small child. But now that they're older, they need to see real emotion. They need to see that it's okay to feel grief and anger and disappointment and frustration and even fear, and to move through it instead of swallowing it. They need to be able to see us get upset without pretending everything's fine. They need to see us feel things fully instead of tightening up or smiling through it or brushing it off. They need to see that anger doesn't mean disconnection, or that sadness doesn't really mean that we have to collapse, that struggle doesn't mean something is wrong with them or with us. Because if we're never really showing our emotions and we're just holding it together all the time, our teenagers learn that real feelings are meant to be hidden or handled alone and moved past as quickly as possible. Like big emotions are something to be ashamed of or rushed through. But when we let them see us actually feel something and then slowly find our way back to our own center, they learn that hard emotions are just a normal part of being human, and that feeling deeply doesn't break us, that our worth isn't tied to how we feel, and that we can move through hard moments instead of getting stuck in them. And this is what resilience is. It's not pushing our emotions down, not slapping a positive spin on everything, and not pretending we're okay when we're not. Resilience looks like, I can feel this and I can stay connected while I do. And it might sound like, yeah, this is really a hard day. I'm actually really sad about it. I'm just going to take a little time to feel it, and then I'll come back later and hang out. Or I'm really frustrated right now. I'm going to step outside and breathe for a minute. I'll be right back. And if we do lose it because we're human, resilience is also, hey, I didn't handle that the way I wish I had. I'm really sorry. I'm still learning too. Let's try this again. And that's what teaches them emotional maturity, emotional intelligence, right? And they learn that it's not about perfection or this beautiful, perfect image, but it's about repair, and it's about self awareness, and it's about our ability to return to ourselves after a hard moment. So we're not trying to raise teens who never feel overwhelmed. It's overwhelming sometimes to be a human on this planet, right? It's really hard. We face a lot of challenges every single day, right? And it takes processing through those things to move through those things. What we're wanting to do is to raise teenagers who know how to come back to themselves after the overwhelm. And the best way to teach them that is by letting them see us do it too. Us just be real humans that go through real emotions, that recover after setbacks. So let's bring all of this together. I talked about a lot of stuff. I think I repeated myself a bunch of times too, but I'm just going to do a quick recap here. The first thing we talked about today was not jumping in the pool. So staying steady enough that our teens can borrow our calm instead of absorbing our overwhelm, right? Number two, we talked about strengthening our emotional foundation. So just small, doable moments of caring for ourselves gives us the capacity to show up with more presence. The third thing we talked about was holding space instead of fixing. So listening first, breathing first, connection first, and then finding solutions later if needed. And then we moved into really being okay with our teenagers' hard emotions, and that feelings aren't problems. They're something to move through and not to avoid. We also talked about validating without absorbing. So caring deeply, but not taking their emotions into your own body. And then finally, modeling steadiness and resilience. So our imperfect, grounded presence teaches them how to weather their own storms. So when we put it all together, what it really comes down to is this. Our teens don't need us to rescue them from their emotions. They need us to walk with them through those emotions while staying grounded in ourselves. They grow when they're allowed to feel, and they heal when they're not alone in the feeling. And we're able to support them best when we care for our own internal landscape too, even in small, tiny ways. So take the pressure off. You don't have to show up flawlessly. You just have to show up with presence. And when you lose your footing, which we all do, you just simply return, right? We just return again and again. So here's your invitation for this week. Instead of trying to implement everything we just talked about all at once, just choose one of these practices that feels the most challenging or the most needed for you right now, and try it out on one real moment with your teenager this week. So maybe it's just taking a breath before you respond, or maybe it's staying near the edge of the pool instead of jumping in, or maybe it's listening before offering solutions, or allowing your teen's emotions without rushing to move past them. Maybe it could be validating their experience without absorbing it, or just letting yourself feel your own emotions openly and honestly. Just one. Pick the one that speaks to you. Try it once this week, and then just notice what happens for you and for them. So you don't have to master it. You don't have to get it right. Just try it. That's it. All right, that brings us to the end, my friends. Thank you so much for being here today, truly. Parenting teens is really vulnerable. It's really heart expanding. And the fact that you're showing up for it matters more than you know. So if this episode spoke to you, here's how you can support this work. You can follow me on Instagram. I share daily tools and reminders to help you stay grounded and connected. You can subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. You can share this with a friend who's in the thick of parenting teens and could use some support. And if you have a moment, please do leave this podcast a review. It really helps this work reach more families who need it. Okay, that's it, everybody. I hope you all have a beautiful day, and I will see you next time. Bye, everyone.